Marcus Rodriguez wiped the sweat from his forehead as he gripped the steering wheel of his big truck. The Texas sun was setting behind him, painting the sky orange and red. He had been driving for 12 hours straight, carrying a load of furniture, from Houston to Dallas. This was his life for the past 15 years. Long roads, heavy loads, and endless miles. The radio crackled with country music as Marcus drove down Highway 75. He knew this road like the back of his hand. Every curve, every hill, every small town along the way. His eyes were tired, but he was almost at his destination. Just 50 more miles to go. As he rounded a sharp bend near Huntsville, something caught his eye. At first he thought it was a pile of old clothes someone had thrown on the side of the road, but as his headlights swept across the area, he saw something that made his heart skip a beat. It was a person. Marcus slammed on his brakes, the big truck groaning and hissing as it came to a stop. He grabbed his flashlight from the dashboard and jumped out of the cab. His boots crunched on the gravel as he ran toward the figure lying motionless by the roadside. It was a young girl, maybe 18 or 19 years old. She was lying on her side, her long brown hair spread across the dirt. Her clothes were torn and dirty. There was dried blood on her forehead, and a dark bruise was forming around her left eye. "Hey, can you hear me?" Marcus called out, kneeling, down beside her. He shined his flashlight on her face. She was breathing, but very slowly. Her skin was cold to the touch. Marcus looked around nervously. The road was completely empty. No other cars, no houses nearby, just thick woods on both sides. How did this girl get here? Where did she come from? His hands shook as he checked her. Pulse. It was weak but steady. She was alive but barely conscious. Marcus had seen accidents before during his years of driving, but this was different. There was no crashed car, no broken glass, no skid marks on the road. It was like someone had just left her here. "Miss, wake up," he said gently, patting her cheek. The girl's eyelids fluttered, but she didn't open her eyes. She made a soft, moaning sound like she was in pain. Marcus pulled out his cell phone to call 911, but there were no bars. The signal was always weak in this area. The nearest town was 20 miles away, and the nearest hospital was even further. He had to make a decision fast. The girl's lips were turning blue. She was getting colder, by the minute. Marcus knew he couldn't leave her here alone while he drove to find help. By the time he came back, it might be too late. He made up his mind quickly. Marcus carefully lifted the girl in his arms. She was lighter than he expected, almost like a child. Her head fell back against his shoulder as he carried her to his truck. "Don't worry, I'm going to help you," he whispered, even though she couldn't hear him. Marcus opened the passenger door and gently placed her on the seat. He grabbed a thick blanket from behind the driver's seat and wrapped it around her shivering body. The cab of his truck was warm from the heater, which was good. She needed to get warm fast. As he started the engine, Marcus took another look at the girl. In the light of the cab, he could see her face more clearly. She had delicate features and looked very young. Her clothes were expensive, designer jeans and a nice sweater. This wasn't some homeless person. This was someone's daughter. But who was she, and what happened to her? Marcus put the truck in gear and started driving toward Huntsville Memorial Hospital. It would take at least 20 minutes to get there, maybe longer with his heavy load. He kept glancing at the girl, watching her breathing. Sometimes she would move her lips like she was trying to say something, but no words came out. "Hang in there, sweetheart," Marcus said, pressing harder on the gas pedal. "We're almost there." The road seemed longer than usual. Every minute felt like an hour. Marcus had hauled everything from cars to computers in his truck, but he had never carried cargo as precious as this unconscious girl. His own daughter Maria was about the same age, studying at college in Austin. The thought of Maria lying hurt and alone on some dark road made his stomach turn. As they drove through the night, the girl started to shiver more violently. Marcus turned up the heat and tucked the blanket tighter around her. Her face was so pale, almost white like paper. Dark circles surrounded her closed eyes. "What's your name, honey?" Marcus asked, hoping she might respond. "Where are you from?" But the girl remained silent. lost in whatever darkness had taken her consciousness. Marcus noticed her hands were scratched and dirty, like she had been crawling or fighting. Her fingernails were broken. One of her shoes was missing. These weren't signs of an accident. These were signs of a struggle. A chill ran down Marcus's spine. What if someone had hurt this girl on purpose? What if they had left her there to die? The thought made him angry and scared at the same time. He reached for his CB radio and tried to contact other truckers on the road. "This is Big Rig Marcus on Highway 75. I found an injured girl and I'm heading to Huntsville Memorial. If anyone's listening, please call ahead and tell them we're coming." A crackling voice answered back. "Copy that, Marcus. I'll make the call. Drive safe, brother." Marcus felt a little better knowing help would be waiting. He looked at the girl again. Her breathing seemed a bit stronger now and some color was returning to her cheeks. The warmth of the truck was helping. "You're going to be okay," he told her. "I promise you're going to be okay." As the lights of Huntsville appeared in the distance, Marcus wondered about this mysterious girl. Who was she? What had happened to her? And most importantly, did she have family somewhere who were looking for her? He had no idea that in just a few days he would discover the shocking truth about her identity, a truth that would change his life forever. Marcus drove his big truck into the hospital parking lot, with his hazard lights flashing. The bright lights of the emergency room cut through the darkness like a beacon of hope. He had called ahead using his CB radio, so the medical team was already waiting outside with a wheelchair and stretcher. "She's in here," Marcus shouted as he jumped out of the cab. 2 nurses and a doctor rushed toward his truck. Marcus carefully lifted the unconscious girl from the passenger seat, her body still wrapped in his thick blanket. "How long has she been unconscious?" asked Dr. Sarah Chen, a small woman with kind eyes and graying hair. She had been working at Huntsville Memorial for over 20 years and had seen everything. "I found her about 30 minutes ago," Marcus replied, breathing heavily. "She was lying on the side of Highway 75, just past mile marker 1 and 12. No car, no accident, nothing. Just her, alone on the road." The medical team quickly placed the girl on a stretcher and wheeled her through the automatic doors. Marcus followed behind, his heart pounding with worry. The bright hospital lights made the girl's injuries look even worse. Her face was bruised and swollen, and there were scratches on her arms and legs. "Sir, you'll need to wait here," said a nurse, pointing to the waiting room. "We need to examine her right away." Marcus nodded and watched as they disappeared behind heavy doors marked "Emergency Treatment, Authorized Personnel Only." He sat down in an uncomfortable plastic chair and buried his face in his hands. His shirt was stained with dirt and blood from carrying the girl. The waiting room was nearly empty except for an old man with a bandaged hand and a woman holding a crying baby. The smell of disinfectant filled the air. Marcus looked at the clock on the wall. It was almost midnight. A few minutes later, a police officer walked in. He was young, maybe in his late 20s, with short blonde hair and a serious expression. "Are you the truck driver who found the girl?" the officer asked, pulling out a small notebook. "Yes, sir. Marcus Rodriguez," he replied, standing up to shake the officer's hand. "I'm Officer Johnson. I need to ask you some questions about what happened tonight." Marcus told the officer everything he could remember, the exact location where he found her, what time it was, what she looked like, and how there were no signs of a car accident or any other vehicles in the area. "Did you see anyone else on the road?" Officer Johnson asked, writing notes. "No, nobody. It's a quiet stretch of highway, especially at night. Most truckers take the interstate instead." "What about her condition when you found her?" "She was unconscious, cold, and breathing very slowly. Her clothes were torn and dirty. It looked like she had been there for a while, maybe hours." Officer Johnson nodded and continued writing. "Did she say anything? Any words at all?" "No, she never woke up during the drive here. Sometimes she would make little sounds like she was dreaming or in pain, but no actual words." Behind the treatment room doors, the medical team was working quickly to stabilize the mysterious girl. Dr. Chen checked her pulse, blood pressure, and temperature, while nurses started an IV drip to get fluids into her system. "Her body temperature is too low," Dr. Chen said to her team. "She's been outside for hours. We need to warm her up slowly. They placed heated blankets over her body and used warm saline solution in her IV. The girl's vital signs were weak but stable. Her heart was beating regularly, which was a good sign. Check for head injuries, Dr. Chen instructed. That bruise on her forehead looks serious. A nurse gently examined the girl's head and found a large bump behind her left ear. There was dried blood in her hair, and her pupils were not responding normally to light. Possible concussion, the nurse reported. We should do a CT scan, Dr. Chen agreed. Head injuries could be dangerous, especially if the person had been unconscious for a long time. They needed to see if there was any bleeding or swelling in her brain. While they waited for the CT scan results, Dr. Chen examined the rest of the girl's body. Besides the head injury, she had several cuts and scrapes on her hands and knees. Her clothes were torn in several places, and one of her shoes was missing. These injuries don't look like they came from a car accident, Dr. Chen told the nurse quietly. This looks more like she was in some kind of fight or struggle. The CT scan results came back showing a mild concussion, but no serious brain damage. The girl's condition was stable, but she would need to stay in the hospital for observation. Back in the waiting room, Marcus was pacing back and forth. He couldn't stop thinking about the girl. She reminded him so much of his own daughter. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why was she alone on that dark road? Officer Johnson finished taking his statement and gave Marcus his business card. If you remember anything else, please call me, he said. This case is very unusual. Young women don't just appear unconscious on empty highways. Do you think someone hurt her? Marcus asked. I can't say for sure yet, but we're going to investigate every possibility. You did the right thing by bringing her here. You probably saved her life. At 2 a.m., Dr. Chen came out to talk to Marcus. She looked tired but relieved. How is she? Marcus asked, standing up quickly. She's stable now. The head injury caused a concussion, which is why she's been unconscious. Her body temperature is back to normal, and we've treated her other injuries. Will she be okay? With time and rest, yes. But she's going to need to stay here for a few days. Concussions can be tricky, and we want to make sure there are no complications. Dr. Chen sat down next to Marcus. The problem is we don't know who she is. She has no identification, no purse, no wallet. Nothing that tells us her name or where she lives. Marcus felt his heart sink. What happens now? We've contacted social services and the police. They'll try to find out who she is. In the meantime, we'll take good care of her. Just then, they heard a commotion from the treatment room. The girl was waking up, and she was very confused and frightened. Nurses were trying to calm her down, but she was asking for someone named Tommy and didn't understand where she was. She's awake, Dr. Chen said, standing up. This is actually a good sign, but she might not remember what happened to her. Memory loss is common with head injuries. Marcus watched through the window as the medical team worked to keep the girl calm. She looked so young and scared. He wished he could help her somehow, but all he could do was wait and hope that someone would come looking for her soon. Little did Marcus know that this mysterious girl would soon reveal a connection to his own life that would shock him to his core. Marcus couldn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about the mysterious girl lying in the hospital bed. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her pale face and the fear in her eyes when she briefly woke up. By 6 a.m., he gave up trying to sleep and drove back to Huntsville Memorial Hospital. The morning sun was just rising as Marcus walked through the hospital doors. The same nurse from the night before was still working her shift. She smiled when she saw him. You're back early, she said kindly. The girl is doing much better this morning. Her name is, well, we still don't know her name. We've been calling her Jane for now. Can I see her? Marcus asked, holding his baseball cap in his hands. She's awake and eating breakfast. I think she'd like to meet the man who saved her life. Marcus followed the nurse down a long hallway to room 237. Through the open door, he could see the girl sitting up in bed, slowly eating scrambled eggs. She looked much better than the night before. Her face was still bruised, but her eyes were clear and alert. Jane, this is Marcus Rodriguez, the nurse said gently. He's the truck driver who found you and brought you here. The girl looked up at Marcus with wide, grateful eyes. Thank you, she whispered, her voice hoarse and weak. The nurses told me what you did. You saved my life. Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes. I'm just glad you're okay, sweetheart. How are you feeling? My head hurts and I'm confused about a lot of things. I can't remember much about what happened to me. Jane touched the bandage on her forehead carefully. The doctor says I have something called amnesia. Don't worry about that right now, Marcus said, sitting down in the chair beside her bed. The important thing is that you're safe. Jane nodded, but Marcus could see the worry in her eyes. I remember some things, like my first name might be Isabella, but I'm not sure. And I keep thinking about someone named Tommy, but I don't know who he is. Just then, Detective Lisa Martinez walked into the room. She was a tall woman with short black hair and a serious expression. She had been a detective for 10 years and specialized in missing persons cases. Good morning, Jane, Detective Martinez said, showing her badge. I'm Detective Martinez. I'm here to help figure out who you are and what happened to you. Jane looked nervous. I wish I could remember more to help you. That's okay. Memory loss after a head injury is normal. Sometimes it comes back slowly. Detective Martinez pulled out a small recording device. Can you tell me anything you do remember? Even small details might be important. Jane closed her eyes and tried to concentrate. I remember being in a car. It was dark outside. There was music playing on the radio, and there was a man with me. Tommy, I think. We were arguing about something. What were you arguing about? Detective Martinez asked gently. I don't know, something that made me scared. I wanted to get out of the car, but he wouldn't stop. Jane's voice started shaking. Then everything goes black. I can't remember anything after that. Marcus felt angry listening to this. It sounded like someone had hurt this innocent girl and left her to die on that lonely road. Detective Martinez continued asking questions, but Jane couldn't remember much more. She didn't know her last name, where she lived, or how to contact her family. The only clue was the name Tommy and the feeling that she had been in danger. After the detective left, a social worker named Mrs. Patterson came to talk to Jane. She was a kind older woman who worked with people who had no family or nowhere to go. Until we find your family, we'll need to place you in temporary care, Mrs. Patterson explained. There's a nice facility here in town where you can stay while you recover. Jane looked scared. What if my family never finds me? What if I never remember who I am? Don't think like that, Marcus said firmly. Someone out there is looking for you. A beautiful girl like you doesn't just disappear without people noticing. That afternoon, Detective Martinez started her investigation. She drove to the spot where Marcus had found Jane and searched the area carefully. She found tire tracks in the dirt that didn't match Marcus's truck. Someone else had been there. The detective also found Jane's missing shoe about 50 feet away from where she was discovered. It looked like it had been thrown there. Near some bushes, she found small pieces of fabric that matched Jane's torn sweater. This wasn't an accident, Detective Martinez said to herself. Someone dumped her here. Back at the police station, Detective Martinez ran Jane's description through missing person databases. She found several reports of young women who had disappeared in the past month, but none of them matched exactly. The detective also contacted hospitals and police departments in nearby cities to see if anyone was looking for a girl matching Jane's description. So far, no luck. Meanwhile, local news stations picked up the story. By evening, Jane's picture was on television and in newspapers. The headline read, "Mystery Girl Found on Highway, Do You Know Her?" Marcus watched the news report from his small apartment. He felt proud that people were calling him a hero, but all he cared about was helping Jane find her family. The next day, Marcus returned to the hospital. Jane was sitting by the window, looking out at the parking lot with sad eyes. Still, no memories? Marcus asked, sitting down beside her. A few more pieces, but nothing that helps much, Jane replied. I remembered that I liked chocolate ice cream and that I'm studying something in school, maybe education or teaching, but I still can't remember my last name or where I live. The news story was on TV last night. I bet someone who knows you saw it. Jane's eyes lit up with hope. Really? Do you think my family might be looking for me? I'm sure they are, sweetheart. Nobody disappears without someone caring. That evening, Detective Martinez got a phone call that changed everything. A woman from San Antonio had seen the news story and thought Jane looked like her missing daughter. But when the detective checked the details, it wasn't a match. However, the call gave Detective Martinez an idea. She decided to expand her search to college campuses. Jane had mentioned studying something, and she looked like a college student. The detective spent hours calling universities and colleges within a 200-mile radius. She sent Jane's picture to campus security offices and student services departments. On the third day, Marcus arrived at the hospital to find Jane crying quietly in her bed. "What's wrong?" he asked, concerned. "Mrs. Patterson says I might have to go to the facility tomorrow. They need this room for other patients." Jane wiped her eyes with a tissue. "I'm scared, Marcus. What if I never remember who I am? What if my family never finds me?" Marcus felt his heart breaking for this poor girl. She was so young and alone. He wanted to help her more than just bringing her to the hospital. "Listen to me, Jane," Marcus said, taking her hand gently. "I promise you we're going to figure this out. I won't give up until we find your family." As Marcus said those words, he had no idea that the biggest shock of his life was just hours away. A discovery that would reveal Jane's true identity and change everything he thought he knew about this mysterious girl. On the fourth day, Marcus arrived at the hospital earlier than usual. He had brought Jane some magazines and a box of chocolates, hoping to cheer her up before she had to move to the temporary care facility. But when he walked into her room, he found it buzzing with activity. Detective Martinez was there with 2 other police officers. Hospital security was also present, and everyone looked very serious. Jane was sitting on her bed, looking confused and worried. "What's going on?" Marcus asked, setting down the gifts on the bedside table. "We found something," Detective Martinez said, holding up a small plastic evidence bag. The hospital security guard was doing one final check of Jane's clothes before sending them to storage. He found a hidden pocket in her jeans that we missed before. Marcus stepped closer to see what was in the bag. There was a folded piece of paper and what looked like a student ID card. "The paper is a note," Detective Martinez continued. "It says, 'If something happens to me, please contact my uncle Marcus Rodriguez in Houston. He drives trucks and has a scar on his left hand from an accident.'" Marcus felt his blood turn cold. He looked down at his left hand, where a long, white scar ran from his thumb to his wrist. He had gotten it 5 years ago when he cut himself fixing his truck. But how could this girl know about his scar? That's my name," Marcus whispered, his voice shaking. "But I don't understand. How does she know me?" Detective Martinez held up the student ID card. "This might explain everything." She handed Marcus the plastic card. He took it with trembling hands and looked at the photo. It showed Jane's face, but the name on the card made his heart stop beating. Isabella Rodriguez, age 19, student at Sam Houston State University. Marcus stared at the card in disbelief. Isabella Rodriguez, his brother Roberto's daughter, his own niece who had been missing for 2 weeks. "No," Marcus whispered, shaking his head. "This can't be real." "Isabella?" Jane said from her hospital bed. "That name, it sounds familiar, like someone calling me Bella." Marcus looked at the girl he had been calling Jane for 4 days. Now that he knew who she was, he could see the family resemblance. She had the same dark eyes as her father Roberto, the same stubborn chin as their grandmother. How had he not recognized his own niece? "Isabella," Marcus said softly, moving closer to her bed. "Your name is Isabella Rodriguez. You're my brother Roberto's daughter. You're my niece." Isabella's eyes went wide. "Uncle Marcus? I remember now. You're my Uncle Marcus who drives the big truck. You used to give me rides when I was little." Tears started flowing down Marcus's face. "Bella, we've all been looking for you. Your parents, the police, everyone. You disappeared from college 2 weeks ago." 2 weeks? Isabella looked shocked. I've been missing for 2 weeks? Detective Martinez pulled out her phone. I need to call your parents right away. They filed a missing person report when you didn't come back to your dorm. While the detective made the call, Marcus sat down beside Isabella's bed and took her hand. The same hand he used to hold when she was a little girl, and he would take her for ice cream. I can't believe it, Marcus said, shaking his head. All this time I was looking for you on the highways, never knowing you were right here in front of me. I wrote that note because I was scared, Isabella said, her memory starting to come back clearer. Tommy, my boyfriend, he got involved with some bad people. They wanted him to bring me to them, but I refused. That night we were driving and arguing about it. I told him I was going to report them to the police. What happened next? Marcus asked gently. Tommy got really angry and scared. He said these people would hurt him if I didn't cooperate. When I tried to get out of the car, he grabbed me and... Isabella touched her head where the bruise was. I think he hit me. Then everything went black. Detective Martinez finished her phone call and came back to them. Your parents are driving here from San Antonio. They should arrive in about 3 hours. They're crying and laughing at the same time. Marcus felt overwhelmed with emotion. His little Bella, whom he had watched grow up, had been lying hurt and alone for days, and he hadn't even recognized her. But at the same time, he felt grateful that fate had put him on that highway at exactly the right time. Uncle Marcus, Isabella said, squeezing his hand. You saved my life twice. Once when I was a little girl and fell in the creek behind Grandma's house, and now this. Marcus remembered that day 15 years ago when 5-year-old Isabella had fallen into the water, and he had jumped in to save her. She had been so small and scared, just like now. That's what family does, mija, Marcus said, using the Spanish nickname he had called her since she was a baby. We take care of each other. Detective Martinez was already working on getting a warrant for Tommy's arrest. Isabella was able to remember his full name and where he lived. She also remembered the names of some of the bad people he was working with. These people you mentioned, Detective Martinez said, they sound like they might be involved in human trafficking. Tommy was probably supposed to bring you to them. Isabella shivered at the thought. When I refused, he panicked. He probably thought he had killed me when he hit me, so he dumped me on that road and ran away. You were very brave to resist them, Detective Martinez said, and smart to hide that note. It's what led us to your identity. As they waited for Isabella's parents to arrive, more of her memories came back. She remembered her roommate Sarah, her classes at the university, and her dream of becoming a teacher. She remembered how Tommy had changed in the past month, becoming secretive and nervous. He kept getting phone calls from people who scared him, Isabella said. He owed them money, and they said I could help him pay it back. When I asked how, he wouldn't tell me. Now I know what they wanted. Marcus felt angry thinking about how close his niece had come to being taken by these criminals. If he hadn't found her that night, she might have died on that cold road. Or worse, been found by the wrong people. The important thing is you're safe now, Marcus told her, and we're going to make sure these people can't hurt anyone else. At 6 p.m., Roberto and Maria Rodriguez burst through the hospital room door. Isabella's parents looked exhausted and worried, but their faces lit up with joy when they saw their daughter alive and safe. Mia! Her mother cried, rushing to hug Isabella carefully. We thought we had lost you forever. Her father Roberto embraced Marcus with tears in his eyes. Brother, how can I ever thank you? You found our daughter. You brought her back to us. The family reunited. Detective Martinez quietly made arrangements to arrest Tommy and investigate the trafficking ring. The case that had started with a mysterious girl on a dark highway was about to become much bigger. The hospital room was filled with tears of joy and relief as the Rodriguez family held each other close. Isabella was finally back in her parents' arms after 2 weeks of fear and uncertainty. Marcus stood watching his brother Roberto cry with happiness, remembering all the nights they had spent searching for Isabella. Tell us everything that happened, mija, her mother Maria said, stroking Isabella's hair gently. We need to know the truth. Isabella took a deep breath and began to tell her story. With her memory now fully returned, she could remember every detail of that terrible night. Her voice was strong, but her hands shook as she spoke. Tommy had been acting strange for about a month, Isabella said. He was always nervous and getting phone calls from people who scared him. He owed money to some very bad men who were involved in illegal business. Detective Martinez took notes as Isabella continued her story. This information would be crucial for catching the criminals. One night, Tommy told me these men had offered him a way to pay off his debt. They wanted him to bring me to a meeting. When I asked why they wanted to meet me, he wouldn't give me a straight answer. Roberto's face grew dark with anger. What did you do? I told him absolutely not. I said it sounded dangerous, and that he should go to the police instead. But Tommy was too scared of these men. He said they would hurt him if he didn't bring me. Isabella paused, remembering the fear in Tommy's eyes that night. He kept begging me to just meet them once. He said they only wanted to talk to me about a job opportunity. But something felt very wrong about it. Marcus squeezed his niece's hand encouragingly. You did the right thing by refusing, Bella. That night, Tommy picked me up from my dorm and said we were going to dinner. But instead of driving to a restaurant, he started heading out of town. When I asked where we were going, he said we were meeting his friends first. Isabella's voice became quieter as she remembered the frightening moments in the car. I realized he was taking me to those men anyway, even though I had said no. I started yelling at him to turn around and take me back to school. We had a huge fight. Then what happened? Detective Martinez asked gently. I told him I was going to call the police and report him and his friends. Tommy completely panicked. He said I didn't understand how dangerous these people were. He grabbed my phone and threw it out the window. Isabella touched the bandage on her head, remembering the pain. I tried to grab the steering wheel to make him stop the car. Tommy pushed me away hard, and I hit my head on the window. Everything started getting blurry. The room was completely silent as everyone listened to Isabella's story. Marcus felt sick thinking about how scared his niece must have been. The last thing I remember clearly was Tommy stopping the car and saying he was sorry. He kept saying he never meant to hurt me, but he was too scared to take me to a hospital. He thought the men would kill him if they found out what happened. So he just left you there? Roberto asked, his voice filled with anger. I think he thought I was going to die anyway. He was crying and saying he was sorry over and over, then he drove away and left me on that dark road. Detective Martinez closed her notebook. Isabella, you're very brave for telling us this. The information you've given us will help us catch these criminals and save other girls from the same danger. Within hours, police had arrested Tommy at his apartment. They found text messages on his phone that proved he was working with a human trafficking ring. The messages showed that the criminals wanted Tommy to bring Isabella to them, so they could force her into their illegal business. Tommy confessed to everything when the police showed him the evidence. He admitted that he had been desperate to pay off his gambling debts and had agreed to help the traffickers. But when Isabella refused to cooperate, he panicked and made a terrible decision. He's looking at serious jail time, Detective Martinez told the family, not just for what he did to Isabella, but for his involvement with the trafficking ring. The police also arrested 3 other men who were running the trafficking operation. They had been targeting college students for months, using boyfriends and friends to trick young women into meeting them. Isabella's story made national news. She became a hero for other young women who were facing similar dangers. She received hundreds of letters from girls thanking her for being brave enough to say no to the criminals. You saved more lives than just your own, Marcus told Isabella as she recovered in the hospital. Other girls will be safer because you were brave enough to fight back. 2 weeks later, Isabella was healthy enough to go home. The whole family gathered at Roberto and Maria's house in San Antonio for a celebration dinner. Marcus drove down from Houston with a truck full of Isabella's favorite foods. Uncle Marcus, Isabella said as they sat on the back porch after dinner, I keep thinking about how you found me that night. What are the chances that you would be driving on that exact road at that exact time? Marcus smiled and put his arm around his niece. I've been thinking about that too. I usually take the interstate, but that night I decided to take the back roads because traffic was heavy. If I had taken my normal route, I never would have found you." "It was meant to be," Isabella said. "God put you there to save me." Marcus nodded. "Your grandmother always used to say that family takes care of family no matter what, even when we don't know we're doing it." Isabella decided to change her major from education to criminal justice. She wanted to help fight against human trafficking and protect other young women from the dangers she had faced. She also started speaking at colleges and high schools, telling her story and teaching other students how to recognize the warning signs of trafficking. Her message was simple: trust your instincts and never be afraid to say no to something that feels wrong. Marcus kept driving his truck routes, but now he paid even more attention to the roads. He joined a program where truck drivers report suspicious activities to help law enforcement catch criminals. His experience with Isabella had shown him that truckers could be heroes just by keeping their eyes open. 6 months later, at Isabella's college graduation, Marcus sat in the front row watching his niece receive her degree. She had not only survived her terrible experience, but had turned it into a mission to help others. "That's my niece," Marcus whispered proudly to the person sitting next to him. "She's going to change the world." As Isabella walked across the stage, she caught sight of her uncle Marcus in the crowd. She smiled and pointed at him, letting everyone know that her hero was watching. The man who had saved her life without even knowing who she was had become her biggest supporter in everything she did. The Rodriguez family had learned that sometimes the most incredible miracles happen in the most ordinary moments. A truck driver, doing his job, a dark highway, and a moment of choice had brought them back together and made them stronger than ever before.